Thank everybody for being with us here today. We want to update you on the ongoing response to Hurricane Beryl. First of all, however, I want to thank Mattress Mack for hosting this event today, but more importantly, thank him for what he does for the greater Houston area every single day. I'm not familiar with a citizen, a resident in any community anywhere who does more for his community selflessly than does Mattress Mack. This community would not be what it is without you and without your unparalleled help, especially for those who need it the most. So Mac, thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, Governor.
And for hosting this. So as usual, our number one goal, first and foremost, is to protect life. An issue that we see in the ongoing response to Hurricane Beryl are life-based issues, not because of the hurricane itself, but because of the lack of power supply, because of extreme heat, because of the lack of the power. There are lives at risk every single day. Also, because of that, according to the police chief, we've seen a slight uptick in criminal behavior. So, once again, the top priority to make sure that we protect more lives is to make sure we get that power back on as quickly as possible. Another issue that we are dealing with also, once again, mostly because of the lack of power, is a lack of adequate food. One thing that the state of Texas has done, working with our local officials, is to provide meals that are ready to eat, delivered in whatever amount of supply is requested by local officials. Similarly, we are facing challenges with regard to water. Both with regard to the meals, meals have been lost because people have not had the power on in their house or apartment, and as a result, their food has spoiled. And the meals are needed because of lack of power. The lack of power is because of Centerpoint. Same thing with regard to water. Water is needed for a lot of different reasons. The state of Texas, once again, is working with our local partners to make sure that there are adequate water supplies as well as ice that will meet any demand that's articulated by local officials. Another thing that the state of Texas continues to respond to are ongoing medical needs. As you are surely aware, there are hospitals and other healthcare facilities that have had lack of power. Because of that lack of power in healthcare facilities, there has been an increased need for the state to assist in providing, it could be supplies, equipment, all different kinds of things to help local healthcare providers be able to meet the needs of people who are injured, people who are hurt, people who were already patients in healthcare facilities. That process by the state of Texas to respond to those medical needs continues. The last thing I'll mention along these lines right now is the ongoing effort by the state of Texas to work with local officials to make sure that their needs concerning public safety are met. And what that means is continuing the process of the state of Texas either bringing in or organizing more law enforcement officers to assist Houston and other local police in making sure they will maintain the safety of their communities. The most enduring problem, because of Beryl, however, is the lack of power. The failure of power companies to provide power to their customers is completely unacceptable. Power companies along the Gulf Coast must be prepared to deal with hurricanes, to state the obvious. Early appearances, however, suggest that some power companies are not adequately prepared for a hurricane like Beryl. Centerpoint in particular has repeatedly failed to deliver power to customers for extended periods. To accelerate that process and to make sure that we look into exactly what has happened and what must be done to correct it, I am sending a letter to Thomas Gleason today. Thomas Gleason is the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, and the letter requires the PUC to undertake an investigation of exactly what has happened by Centerpoint, find out what the reason for failure was, what must be done to fix it. So there will be the Public Utilities investigation. There'll be investigations and recommendations both by the PUC as well as by state legislators on remedial action to be taken by Centerpoint as well as other power companies. I will work with legislators to craft laws to improve power reliability. But, and here's the important part, we are still in hurricane season right now, and solutions cannot wait until the next session. They are needed now to minimize power disruptions as we respond to tropical weather for the remainder of the summer and this fall. To help avoid more power outages during the remainder of hurricane season, I will set the following minimum standards for Centerpoint. I will give Centerpoint until July the 31st to provide my office with specific actions that they will take to address the following issues that focus on improving power reliability. Number one, removal of any vegetation that threatens any power line in the geographic region covered by Centerpoint. Centerpoint admitted that Beryl was a heavy vegetation-related storm. Centerpoint is responsible for eliminating the vegetation before a hurricane hits. Some reports show that Centerpoint spends far less per customer on vegetation removal than some other power providers. So here's my order to Centerpoint. They must provide in detail what Centerpoint will do to eliminate all vegetation issues, and that information must be received by, the removal must be accomplished by August the 31st. Many reports agree that Centerpoint appeared to have been caught off guard by the unexpected arrival of Beryl in Houston, and as well as the magnitude of the devastation that it caused. A power company on the Gulf Coast should never be caught off guard. It must remain eternally vigilant. And even then, a Category 1 hurricane should never compromise the power system in the state of Texas that is the official hurricane season that we're in right now. Centerpoint must specify actions that it will take in the coming months that it did not take in Beryl that will reduce or eliminate power outages in the event of another tropical storm arriving at the Gulf Coast. Number three, Centerpoint claims that it has assembled thousands of additional linemen and other personnel to speed the recovery process. Some reports contend, however, that many of those workers were slow getting into the field because of a variety of different reasons. One was training workers after the hurricane hit rather than training those workers before the hurricane hit. Another was positioning workers days after the hurricane was gone rather than positioning those workers immediately after the hurricane left. Another is haggling with workers over pay, and the list goes on. The bottom line, however, is this. Regardless of the reason, Centerpoint did not have an adequate number of workers pre-staged to immediately address the power outage. So my demand upon Centerpoint, they must specify what actions they will take to pre-stage a sufficient number of workers to be able to meet the immediate response to any power outages that may occur for any tropical storm that hits their service region for the remainder of this hurricane season. Additionally, allegations have been made that while Texans have been baking in deadly heat without power, Centerpoint was penny pinching and cutting corners in ways that slow the recovery process. Those allegations must be investigated. We must know, was Centerpoint protecting Texans, or was it protecting its own pocketbook? Centerpoint admits, among other things, on another issue, that its new poles are better than its old poles, especially as it concerns grid reliability. But at risk to this region, Centerpoint appears to be waiting until the end of hurricane season to address the pole issue. It is waiting on a funding decision by the PUC that will take place, required by law, by the end of October. Centerpoint must get those poles fixed before hurricane season strikes again, not after hurricane season is over. Another issue. Centerpoint failed to keep power on for some hospitals, nursing homes, and senior living facilities. My demand is that Centerpoint must show with certainty how it will retain or quickly restore power for those at-risk Texans before another tropical storm hits. And here's the ultimate point. If Centerpoint fails to comply with this request or provides insufficient information by July the 31st, I will issue an executive order in response to any impending tropical storm to impose my own requirements on Centerpoint that are geared to keep power on through hurricane season until the next legislative session. Also, if Centerpoint does not comply, I will demand that the Public Utilities Commission reject Centerpoint's request to recover a profit in its pending request before the Public Utilities Commission. Additionally, if Centerpoint is unable to fix its ongoing problems, at some point in time, either the PUC or the state of Texas will have to reconsider the territorial region that Centerpoint is managing, or rather mismanaging. Maybe they have too large of an area for them to be able to manage adequately. It's time to reevaluate whether or not Centerpoint should have such a large territory. Also, let me be clear about another point that's extraordinarily important. There are linemen for Centerpoint who are working to get power back on. Those linemen in many regions across this area are being physically threatened, sometimes attacked by people on the streets, endangering their lives and discouraging them from even going out into the field and getting the power back on. For one, if there's no reason why anybody here should ever be threatening the life of anybody else, period. Second, if you're angry about the lack of power, you're taking it out on the wrong person if you're interfering with somebody who's trying to get the power back up. Also, if you're wanting to get the power back on, your actions that intimidate or threaten the linemen or whoever's trying to get the power back on, you're not speeding up the process of getting the power back on, you're slowing that process down. Last thing I'll say is this. This region has a motto, and that motto is Houston Strong. People in this area are proud of their resilience, perseverance, and tenacity, and their ability to rise above challenges and accomplish things that other people think are impossible. That very same moxie will elevate this region and our state above this challenge too. Now, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Thank you, Governor. I know everyone at Centerpoint who's in an air-conditioned office is watching. A freight train's coming. You just heard it. You better be prepared. Whether you're at the top or any part of management who oversaw this response or preparation, everybody's job should be on the line. We will not and cannot tolerate this. I'm sitting here looking at this saying that Mack has up on the wall. Respect is earned by consistent, excellent behavior over long periods of time. Centerpoint once, I would say, was a company that we had confidence in. All of us up here and most of the public. We've had many storms, they've responded well. They totally failed in preparation and they failed in response. They have lost respect from the city of Houston and the surrounding areas that they service. I asked 10 questions, proposed 10 questions that we will ask during Senate hearings, and we will have Senate hearings. Right now, my focus is get everybody to get the power up. Don't worry about answering the questions today. Get the power on. We have people suffering out there today in 100-degree heat that have not had power and won't have it for another day or two or more. But we will have hearings beginning in August, and there will be lots of questions. But one of my first questions is, does Centerpoint still look at Houston as a priority of their business. They're a different company than they used to be. Is it all, as the governor said, at the bottom line and not about human life? Mack is a successful business person because he says, buy it today, I'll deliver it tonight. Well, if I don't get my Tempur-Pedic mattress from Mack tonight, I don't die. If they don't deliver when they're expected to deliver, people have and will die. Secondly, when it comes to storms, they were not prepared. They did not think this was going to be a serious storm. They didn't think it was going to hit Houston. It's obvious by their preparation. Centerpoint has to understand, as does every utility company on the coast, that anytime there's a tropical storm in the Gulf, whether it's predicted to be a hurricane or not, you have to prepare as if it's going to be the worst storm to hit Houston, where the biggest population is, or any area they cover, or any other company. Nimkid and I, this past week, have worked together, and the one thing we said from the first day on, and the governor and I talked about, the state of Texas has to pray for the best and prepare for the worst. Centerpoint did not prepare for even the least, and that's why we are here. This is not tolerable. And to dovetail on what the governor said about those attacking, we had one attack by gunfire on Thursday, 2 on Friday, 1 yesterday. I think we as the legislature need to look at the penalties for that crime and ratchet it up. Because let me tell you what, some of these people that have come in from states all over the country, they turned around and went home. Who's going to come to Texas and help Houstonians if Houstonians are shooting at them? That must stop. There will always be idiots. There will always be people who have had too much to drink and people who have had too much anger. For whatever reason, there is no excuse, no matter how much you've been sweltering in the heat, for criminal behavior and to attack someone, as the governor said, trying to help you. But we're going to stop that. And you're going to face a long time in jail if you ever do that. So everything the governor has said, I can speak for the Senate, we're all on board this freight train that's coming. And once again, I say to Centerpoint, you need to look within yourselves. I don't really care about your internal investigation except to supply us with answers. But I want to know, are you short of transformers? I want to know, as the governor said, did you cut corners? I want to know why you've cut your spending on vegetation and clearing the areas. I want to know, have you been out there negotiating with crews that came in from outer state of how much you're going to pay them? And I want to know this business model. After the storm, you say you need a day or more of assessments. We get it, okay? Where's the damage? And we know there's 48 hours of training for out-of-state crews. So they're not electrocuted, all systems aren't the same, so they don't damage the systems more. But if you already have a business model that says I need a day or a day and a half of assessments and I need 2 days to train, we're already 4 days down the line, Governor, before we're getting power back, except the easiest cases where you lift a branch or lift a tree. That's a bad, flawed business model. Centerpoint, you better respond, or we will support the governor, if need be, looking at the territory you represent. Now to Nimkid.
Thank you, Governor. Life safety continues to be the #1 priority of all of the state agencies that are engaged in this mission. That's from the Texas Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, our Forest Service folks, the Commission on Environmental Quality, our search and rescue teams, our public work response team, our communication coordination group, and right now, most importantly, our Department of State Health Services Emergency Medical Task Force. We have opened up a 250-bed field hospital or medical shelter, and that has had 120 patients run through that facility. That helps alleviate strain on the hospital so that our EMS units can get people dropped off at the ER and get back out on the street for the next 911 call. We will continue to bring police and law enforcement support here. You have over 80 outside members of the Department of Public Safety on the streets, over 100 local law enforcement that we will extend or continue at the direction of Chief Satterwhite, who was meeting with us earlier today, working very closely with Mayor Whitmire on these additional resources that we're bringing in from the outside. And we have food and water and ice available to our local partners that ask for it. Governor, we continue to source generators for those locations. As power does come back up, we're moving those generators around, and we are not leaving until power is back on and our system is back to normal.
Thank you. Now, Mattress Mack.
Thank you very much. I was here Sunday night looking at the weather forecast, as all of us Houstonians and Texans were, and as was said, didn't know if the hurricane was going to hit Houston or not. But I didn't want to sleep in my luxurious Tempur-Pedic at home and get stuck in the floodwater. Right. So I slept in my little bathroom over there on a bad mattress, because I have learned in my life that the best ability is availability. We wanted to be available in case the proverbial stuff hit the fan, and it certainly did on Monday. So we opened our doors here at Gallery Furniture. By the way, we've been on generator power since the hurricane hit. We got back on regular power this morning at 4 a.m. But we are lucky enough to have a generator here so we can welcome people in. And we decided to become a cooling center for people, and we decided to feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we also decided to have a place where they could power their devices. Monday through Thursday, we had 15,000 people in here, about 3,500 people eating every day. And we did that because it's the right thing to do. I wish I could just hire people to deliver furniture during the busy holiday times. When we have 1,000 deliveries on the 4th of July and we have 100 the other days, we got to gear up for 1,000 all the time. Centerpoint doesn't think like that. Centerpoint's thinking, we don't want to spend the money. We want to make a lot of bottom line so our execs can get paid. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Centerpoint. All of us, we don't summer in Aspen. We summer in Houston. And this is a real place. And these are real people. These are my people coming in here crying because they're hot and they're miserable and they're dying. These are the people that hospitals sent out here that needed a heart rate charger for their hearts, otherwise they were going to die. These are real people, mothers coming in here breastfeeding their children because it's so stifling hot at home. And the executives at Centerpoint don't get that. Put the people before the profit. Put the people before the profit. These are my people, and you are making our people suffer through your heartless attitude of money, 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 money. Well, you know you can't take it with you. And one of these days, all of us are going to stand in front of our Creator, whoever we might believe that Creator to be. And at that time, the Creator is not going to ask you or I, how much money, Governor, did we make? Or how many material possessions did we accumulate? That Creator will ask us, what type of difference did you make? And I want to thank these three men up here and countless first responders, men and women all over our city and county, and all the hardworking people who have worked 20 hours a day to help people out during this horrible hurricane. And Centerpointless, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Not the line workers. The line workers are the greatest people on earth. We were out here delivering water and Gatorade to them and Chick-fil-A cards yesterday, and they're great people from all across the country. They're working 16 to 18 hours a day in this sweltering heat. But the Centerpoint executives up there cutting costs so their end-of-the-year bonus is bigger. Shame on you. We got to get ready for hurricanes. We have hurricanes in Houston. We got to get ready for it. We got to deal with it, and we got to understand that at the end of the day, life is not about money. Life's about making people's lives better. And when we have no gasoline in Houston, no gasoline, you couldn't gas up your car anywhere. Fist fights everywhere. 2 pregnant women fought down the street about who's going to get gasoline. No gasoline. How about no food? How about a young family that's living paycheck to paycheck, that all the food in their refrigerator spoils and all the food in their freezer spoils, and that's $1,000. That's a lot of money that just tore up. How about all these people at restaurants, at retailers, at different business, manufacturers, whatever? They had no electricity. They closed for the last week, and all their employees got 0 paycheck. How do you deal with that, Centerpointless? You can't deal with that in Aspen. You need to get on the ground in Houston and do your job. You need to do your job. And I'll give you one more thing to think about, Centerpointless. This is a world now of immediate gratification. Think Amazon.
Right.
Think Gallery Furniture. Think cell phones. 10 years ago when we had hurricane response out here, people would come in here, they had no thought of charging their cell phone. Now they can't live without their cell phone. They want to talk and see if their loved ones are okay. They want to figure out how to get geographic directions across Houston. And their cell phones, the main thing they come in here for is, yes, they're coming here for food and for air conditioning, but they're also coming in to charge their cell phones. And when the power goes down around town for 7 days, all that's gone. So let's put people before profit, Centerpointless. Let's think about the people you're causing misery to, because I see them out here every day and it makes me sick. I don't care about how much money I make. My daddy and my mother taught me how much a difference you're going to make, boy, and that's why we're all here.
Thank you, Mac, and once again, thank you for everything that you do for this community and for our state. We are far better because of you. We'll be happy to take a few questions.
Governor Abbott, do you consider legislation requiring utilities to bury the lines rather than keeping up with overgrown vegetation and poles that are rotting and coming down in high winds?
We have considered it, and actually we spoke about it in the meeting before we came out here. A valid point was made that we just need to look into, and that is in areas in particular like Houston that oftentimes get inundated very heavily when storms come through. In particular, think of Hurricane Harvey. If you have buried lines, the lines could get compromised underwater for a long time. It may make it even longer to access those lines, to improve those lines, than it would lines that would have been blown down that were otherwise up in the air. Just know this, and that is the Public Utilities Commission, the state legislature, and myself, we will all look at the possibility of maybe strategic burying of lines, maybe with regard to new construction, for example, and some other ways, if it is in areas that will ensure that it's not going to be compromised if it is buried.
You said that Centerpoint doesn't respond in a certain amount of time. Actions must take. Just touch base and just go a little bit more in depth into that. If they don't respond, what's going to happen?
I made certain demands today of Centerpoint that require Centerpoint to provide solutions to me by July the 31st. If they fail to do so, I will use the authority given to me by law to use executive orders that have the effect of law, that requires Centerpoint to do what I expect them to do to keep power on in the event that there is another tropical storm that hits this area.
There's been 3 people in Harris County at least that have died of hypothermia due to a loss of power outage. What, if any, penalties can Centerpoint face for those loss of life due to power being?
So obviously there will be investigations about the loss of life and any connection between the loss of life and the actions of Centerpoint. And the consequences Centerpoint will face for that could vary from local authorities to what the state may do. But it certainly will be an issue that the state will evaluate, and either there currently are penalties that are in place, or it surely is something that the PUC can use to evaluate, as it is currently considering the plan before the PUC that will be decided before the end of October, what type of penalties to impose on Centerpoint.
What I've seen adding fuel to the fire, Centerpoint has been calling individuals on their phones saying that power has been restored, but it has not. On my street, everybody's in their 70s to 90s on breathing machines, and as of right now, nobody still has power, but they keep saying that we do. They're lying to us, and it's making people act out violent. What can be done about that?
Well, so you're making a key insightful point, and that is as bad as Centerpoint has been at keeping the power on, they've been worse in communicating with their customers and with the public. So the communications aspect of it is something that the Public Utilities Commission is working on as we speak, and may impose orders on Centerpoint here in the coming weeks. It'll also be part of my process to make sure that Centerpoint is communicating appropriately. I will tell you this, and that is it does seem that the communication by Centerpoint is at a new low. In other words, they used to do a better job of communicating. For reasons none of us can comprehend, their communication has worsened. We were talking before we came out that had Centerpoint just let the public know listen, this is a bad storm, power lines are down, it's going to take us about a week to get power back up and running again, that could have allowed residents to make one set of decisions. Because they did not say that, Centerpoint did not say that, it led customers, Houstonians, to think, well, my power may be back up in 24 to 48 hours. And they stuck around only to be left in a hopeless situation. Bottom line is this. The communications component of Centerpoint is unacceptable, will not be allowed to persist. Corrections are coming, whether they like it or not. Go ahead. Sure, I'll give you both, but here's the deal, because part of my answer to your first question is going to be also provided by Chief Nim Kidd. But let me go take your questions in order. You said, what can the state do to help out? So the state is fully engaged in helping out local communities long before a storm even hits. The first thing we do is to get organized and make sure that the state and local governments are prepared for whatever type of storm may come in. That means that we are sending out supplies and resources to every location that could be affected by a storm, so that without having to wait, we will be able to respond. It could be with search and rescue teams. It could be with boats. It could be with high water vehicles. It could be the supplies that are needed. And on the supplies, it's another way that the state has helped out. Food, water, ice, cooling centers, all of those and so much more the state's been involved in. A unique situation here is because of inadequate power, it forced hospitals to have to retain in their hospital people who were injured or had to be taken care of, and they could not discharge their patients. And as a result, it was the state that stepped in to assist local government to set up the facility at NRG to assist with addressing healthcare situations of local citizens. There's more that Chief Kidd will be able to add, but let me answer your second question. What happened yesterday is horrific. It's a sad day in America when we see an assassination attempt. Assassinations, to say the least, are unacceptable. And as sad and horrific as it was to see the former president of the United States of America and a candidate for the presidency again to be attacked in a deadly way, we all must understand that in that attack, we had a fellow American lose his life, another American injured. This is not some game. This is not politics. A real human being lost their life. A family will never be able to see again. So this is a sad and tragic day. But we also must understand this. This is unfortunately not an isolated incident. We have seen during the course of this hurricane, for example, here in the Houston area, you've seen a sheriff's deputy assassinated. That is completely unacceptable. You saw another police officer who was shot. The attack on public officials is an outrage. Another thing about yesterday, it's really astonishing that we saw the president, former president, be shot, but suffer only a wound to his ear. Anybody who's thought anything about that knows that had that shot been a millimeter or two different, he would have been a victim of assassination. Trump is truly blessed by the hand of God being able to evade being assassinated. But it shows you when you look at what he's been through yesterday, the trials and tribulations that he's been through, not just yesterday, but through the entirety of the past year. There's no one in America who has the strength, physical, mental, and emotional, to be able to stand up to that, to be able to respond to that, to be able to deal with all of that. He is the mightiest warrior that we have. in the United States of America. Another thing I'll add is and the last thing I'll add, and that is that he showed his character last night in his first response. One thing that Dan and I know, because we know him personally, that most Americans and most Texans don't know. The first thing Donald Trump thinks about is other people. And he revealed that in the first thing that he shared publicly with people in the aftermath of getting shot. The first thing he talked about was thanking the Secret Service, but then the second thing he talked about was not himself, but the other victims of what happened. That is who he is all the time, caring about others before caring about himself. And so it's a sad day, but it's a day where Donald Trump showed his character and his resiliency. I'll let Chief Kidd answer the remainder of the question about what Texas has done.
Thank you. I think the most important thing that we remember about disaster is nobody goes through and nobody does this alone. The people that are closest to the citizens are your local elected officials, your mayors, your county judges, your council members. The next step above that is the men and women standing behind me, your state representatives and state senators. I communicate daily with our local elected officials. Our team communicates daily with these offices here. As that information gets passed up, that's how we know what needs are at the local level. Our State Emergency Management Council, the 39 state agencies that support disaster response and recovery, work together to satisfy those needs that are passed to us through our local and state officials. With that, we are going to continue to provide food, water, and ice, and safety and shelter for as long as it is needed.
Governor, can I
Go ahead.
just add something? We went to Matagorda, we went to Jasper, we talked with county judges everywhere. We were in Bryan College Station, we were in Houston. Within a few days, there was not one mayor or one county judge that said they had not gotten what they asked for from the state. Everything they asked for in advance they had, everything they asked for the day after the storm they had, or it was on its way like a gallery furniture truck. So I applaud NIM, and look, we have the best emergency management division in the country. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars to our staging center in College Station. We had our teams in there on Friday from Missouri and Tennessee. We had everything ready, whether it was divers for rescues, boats in the water, whatever was needed. We were hauling ice in this week from Alabama, 10 truckloads. Why? Because we don't want to buy all the ice from all the local stores, because people are trying to buy their own ice at the local store. So we extend, and the state has delivered. Your counties and your cities have delivered. I want to salute John Whitmire. This was his first, not rodeo, he's been to that many a times, but this was his first storm. And he and Chief Satterwhite did a tremendous job and have been doing a tremendous job. And I will say the mayor too, like those of us here, we care about people and put people first. And so I thank the mayor, but NIM, as always, you and your team and everyone, it's a tiered effort and everyone really worked together. But if we don't have power, a lot of things we want to do can't happen.
Go ahead. Oh, he had his hand. I'll come to you. He had his hand up right here. I'll come back to you next.
Governor, we understand Centerpoint, since and a number of other gigantic energy conglomerates since deregulation have run into the same problems. We looked at Pacific Gas and Electric burning down half the state of California. We've looked at Southern California Gas blowing out a underground storage facility and letting gas escape into the atmosphere. For months and months and months, we even saw presidential candidate Robert Kennedy take on Southern California Gas. Given the Centerpoint fumble that we're living in, is it time to re-regulate utilities?
You know, sometimes whenever people see a problem arise, they think maybe there's more regulation needed, or you need to impose more heavy-handed government. Let me tell you the way we discuss this before coming out to help you understand that may not be the right answer. I ask a very specific question to the chair of the Public Utilities Commission, as well as to Chief NIM Kidd, and that is, are you seeing these same problems with other power companies? And I mentioned a few. And the answer everyone agreed upon is we have a lot of power companies in the state of Texas, but we're not seeing similar problems with other power companies. The point is this. This is an issue and a failing that is unique to Centerpoint. We don't need to reconstruct a new system. We just need better results from one company that has showed repeated failure in this region.
You talk about what federal assistance has been requested, and do you think that assistance was requested soon enough? Supposed to be 3 days ago that was requested, but that was days after the settlement. Do we have enough resources coming, and should they have been requested sooner?
So the full answer to all this is going to be provided by Chief Demkid, who has the most information about it.
So many fire stations like
So the question is, should it have been requested sooner? And the answer is no, it should not have been. By federal law, states are required to do damage assessments. Now, as Governor Patrick mentioned, our Texas legislature has put hundreds of millions of dollars into this state's readiness. There was not a piece of equipment, not a bottle of water, or not a meal ready to eat that we did not have available for our local partners. That's part number one. Part number two, you need to go back and look at all of the declarations that have been granted by various presidents over the years. Remember, FEMA reimburses after the fact. That means these local governments have to spend those dollars ahead of time and then apply for reimbursement, which on historical averages takes 10 to 12 years to get that money back. So we are wasting effort right now talking about how fast things should have done when everything that our local officials asked for was delivered and our stations were set up and our resources were ready ahead of the storm.
Governor, do you still plan to attend the RNC this week? And then just to follow up on what you mentioned, Mr. Kidd, it is in both Hannah and Harvey, the disaster declaration was, major disaster declaration was requested before the storm hit. Does that make any substantial difference? Would you have done that, Governor Abbott?
So with regard to your first question, listen, I'm taking what I do on a day-by-day basis. My priority is making sure that the people of Houston, Texas, and this entire region that are affected by Hurricane Beryl, that's my top priority, period. Second, with regard to, let's say, any type of declaration or any other action that may have been taken had I been here, let me make clear about something. Had I been here the entire time, there'd be absolutely nothing that would be any different. Every decision that would have been made would have been exactly the decision I would have made. Also along those lines, I was in frequent contact with acting Governor Dan Patrick. I talked to Demkid 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, whatever the number was. And know this, and that is our daily, or let's say nightly conversations ended with the same 5 words every day. Are there any unmet needs? And that's always the goal, making sure we finish every single day with no unmet needs. I got the same answer every time. There were no unmet needs.
Sorry, just the first question, so you're not going to attend that RNC?
So again, right now, my decision is to remain here and make sure that we are addressing the needs of the public. I'm working on a day-by-day basis. Today is Sunday. I can tell you I'm going to be here tomorrow. This is a fact. And we'll see how things progress with regard to the response to Hurricane Beryl.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.